So this is the first video on the properties of number system. So when we are dealing with different numbers and different operators, numbers and the basic operator like plus, minus, division and multiplication, right? So these are the basic operators. So when we apply these operators between the number like 4 plus 8 or a minus b. So when we apply these operators on different numbers or variables, then we observe that there are certain trends which are always valid, right? So that become the property of that number system or with respect to that operator. So the first one is the commutative property. So let's see the commutative property. The first thing first is let's see that what does this word mean. So basically the word commutative, it comes from the word commute, and commute means to move, or you can say to swap. Now it would make your life much easier. The second very important thing about commutative property is that it deals with two numbers, right? So usually when we deal with two numbers, we see for the commutative property, and when we have more than two numbers, then it is basically we see the number system in the associative property, right? So in commutative property, we have two numbers and we can have any of the four operator between them, like plus, minus, division or multiplication. And we look for whether by changing the position or by moving the position of these two numbers, whether the answer changes or not. So if I swap or I move 1 with 2 and 2 with 1, whether my answer changes or not. So if my answer changes, then it means commutative property is not valid. And if my answer doesn't change, it is same, then it means commutative property is valid. So commutative property has to do with the order of numbers, or you can say generically that if by changing order of number, the result doesn't change, then you can say that commutative property is valid. And if by changing the order result changes, then it means commutative property is not valid. Okay, now let's simplify it by seeing some of the examples. So let's dive in. As I've told you previously that we have basic operators plus, minus, multiplication, division. So we are going to assume any two numbers and we are going to see in each operator, right? So let's assume numbers 2 and 4, right? And let's see first for addition, whether commutative property is valid in this case or not. So we know that 2 plus 4 is 6, isn't it? Now let's swap the positions, or let's change the order of both of the numbers. So now instead of 2 we have 4, and instead of 4 we have 2, and the plus operator remains same. So here 4 plus 2 is also 6. So by changing the order, the result does not change. That means commutative property when we have addition is valid. That means it's up to you how you add two numbers. The result is not going to change. You add 10 into 9 or 9 into 10, it's going to give you 19 in any case. So it doesn't matter that how you add two numbers, right? So you can say general form, so you can say A plus B is equals to B plus A. So A is any number, B is any number. So whether you add A into B or B into A, it is same. It is always same. So commutative law or commutative property is valid for addition. Valid for addition. That means in addition, it is order of the numbers does not matter. Now let's change the sign between these two numbers. Now let's see for subtraction. If I put a minus sign in between these two numbers, so 2 minus 4 is minus 2, right? Now let's swap the positions. We have 4 instead of 2 and 2 instead of 4 and minus sign in between. So 4 minus 2 is 2, and you know in maths minus 2 and plus 2, these are two entirely different numbers. They are not same, right? So it means that if I change order of two numbers and I have a subtraction between or a minus sign between the two numbers, then it matters. Okay, the result changes. So commutative property is not valid for subtraction. So you can say A minus B is not equal to B minus A. Here order, the way you write numbers matter. So commutative property is not valid in case of subtraction. Now let's place third operator, which is multiplication between the two numbers. So 2 into 4 or 2 multiplied by 4 is 8. And if I swap 4, 2, 4 into 2 is 8. That means whether you multiply this way or this way, the result is going to be same. That means order here, the way we write or the way we multiply two numbers or two factors does not matter, right? So here you can generically write it as whether you multiply A with B or you multiply B with A, it is same. It does not affect the result. In multiplication, commutative property is valid. In multiplication. Now let's change the operator. Now let's see in division. So 2 divided by 4, you can rewrite it as like this. So it's 1, 2, it's 1.5, right? And if I swap the positions, which gives me 4 divided by 2. So if I have 4 divided by 2, then it's going to be 2. So here order matters, right? By changing order, the result changes. So in division as well, the commutative property is not valid. You can write it generally as A upon B is not equal to B upon A. Okay, so it's time for the quick summary. So commutative property is the property which deals with the order of two numbers. So here in this commutative property, order of two numbers, it does not matter, okay? It always produces the same result. If it is so, then it's a commutative property, and if by changing order the result changes, then it does not follow the commutative property. So commutative property is valid for addition. You can say a plus b is equals to b plus a, or the order in which you add two numbers does not affect the result. So addition obeys the commutative property. So it is valid in this case. Subtraction does not follow the commutative property because the here order matters. Okay, it changes the result. In multiplication, again it is valid. It doesn't affect the result the way you multiply two numbers or two factors. So commutative property is valid for addition and multiplication. And for division, here order matters. The way you divide matters. It does not produce same result if you swap the numbers or variables. So commutative property is not valid in case of division. So only in case of addition and multiplication commutative property is valid. I hope now you have understood the commutative property of the number system. Have a happy learning. Don't forget to try out the worksheet which is given below in the description box. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel.